DevOps friends, welcome to Monospace Mentor, that's me, and welcome to my live coding channel. Today we're going to continue where I basically left off last week when I started using Kamal to deploy our Rails application. So just to catch everyone up, we are running a Ruby on Rails application, which is the customer dashboard of my company's managed hosting platform. And so far, and for many, many years, we've been hosting it on Heroku. It might seem strange that a hosting company is using another hosting provider's platform, but hosting the dashboard isn't really core of our business. The dashboard is. And so we decided, yeah, let's let someone take care of hosting a Rails application who knows what they're doing. Since we are specialized in hosting Drupal and WordPress websites, hosting Rails with all its intricacies wasn't any of our specialties when we set out to do this back 15 years ago, almost. And so we chose Heroku because Heroku was the Ruby on Rails hosting platform back in the day. I've been planning to move the dashboard off Heroku for quite a while now, for cost reasons, also because it's not really that cutting edge anymore. Since they've been acquired by Salesforce, I don't think they've been at the forefront of application deployment anymore. And last week they forced my hand by basically giving me an error message that our code base is too large to be deployed. And I have no idea how I'm supposed to reduce our code base without throwing out dependencies or things that we definitely need. And so that basically made me go, okay, let's move off Heroku, let's do our own hosting, and let's try out Kamal for it. Kamal being the relatively new deployment tool from Basecamp. And last week I started setting up deployment with Kamal, setting up the server that we're going to use, starting to deal with environment variables and secrets, setting up a Docker file that allows us to use Docker in production, because up until now we've only been using Docker in development for this application. And we left off when deployment didn't really work and only gave very opaque error messages. And I'll get to what these error messages meant in a second, but before I do, hey, let's not make this a 2 or 3 hour long monologue on my side. If there's anything that you'd like to ask, if there's anything that you'd like to share, feel free to do so. I'm always interested in new tips, in helpful advice, in open source tools that I might be excited about. And I mean, the least you can do is say hello. And so yeah, let's make this a two-way street, okay? Now, what went wrong when I did the Kamal deploy? Shot of code saying hello, thank you. I appreciate it. It's always good to see that people are alive on the other side of the screen. So the simple reason why the application deployment failed with some very strange error messages was because the application did actually not launch. It simply wasn't set to launch the Rails server because, as I mentioned, I had been using Docker only for development. And in development, I used a Docker Compose file that launched the container just sleeping in for for an infinite time. And if I wanted to run the application, I would do so manually. So I could easily restart the application without having to restart the container all the time. So I just logged in, did a Rails server, and if I had to restart the Rails server, I just stopped it and restarted it again in the same container. And I didn't realize that when I deployed or tried to deploy the same Docker file to what is now going to be our production environment, and simply adding a command in the Docker file that launched the Rails server did solve that issue. There were a few more issues that I took care of the following days and over the last weekend. And now we are at a point where I actually have all my secrets in 1Password, and Kamal can actually pull the secrets off 1Password, which is super. So give me just a second for housekeeping here. Go. All right. Switch projects here and go here. All right, so let me see. Can I show you the deployment file? Yes, I can. Okay. Okay, so that's how the deployment file now looks like. I have my service with an image, with a Docker image that will be built and deployed. It lives with the code in the same GitLab repository. We deploy to a specific server that I've set up, and now I've also assigned it a domain for which Kamal is already managing an SSL certificate that already works. For the registry on GitLab, I need a password because it's a private repository. And so that requires a secret called Kamal registry password. To build the Docker image, we also need a secret, which is the GitHub token we need to access a gem repository, an internal one that requires authorization. And here we have the environment variables. We have three standard environment variables for the Postgres host, which is just the Docker host name of the Postgres database. And since the project name is dashboard-API, the Postgres host, which is defined down here as Postgres, that's the accessories, these are auxiliary services. This service is named Postgres, and therefore the container name will be dashboard-API-Postgres, so I can actually predict that the Postgres host is going to be this name. We have a database, we have a Redis database as well, and we are using 4 secrets. Mainly the database user and password, the Honeybadger API key that we use for error reporting, and the Rails master key. The Rails master key is actually the key or the reason that the list of secrets is much shorter than it was last week. Last week I listed all the secrets that we need to run the application here, and I planned to simply provide them as environment variables, just like they are on Heroku at the moment. Following basically the 12-factor application pattern. But I realized most of our secrets can actually be stored as Rails credentials, which get stored as an encrypted file in the repository itself. Of course, since they are in the repository, the file needs to be encrypted, And so there is a Rails master key necessary to decrypt this file. By providing this Rails master key here, I was able to put most secrets like API tokens and similar things into the Rails credentials file that gets deployed by Kamal and gets stored in our repository. The Rails master key, together with these other secrets, is stored in a shared 1Password vault, to which our engineering leadership has access to. And so this makes it easy to actually use a very straightforward Kamal secrets file that I can show you as well, since it doesn't contain any secrets. So that's this. All I do is I fetch all the essential secrets from 1Password, and then I can extract the few necessary secrets from the basically JSON document that Kamal pulled from 1Password. So that's how we get the Rails master key, the Postgres user, the Postgres password, and so on and so on. That way I can actually include the secrets file itself in the code repository too, because it doesn't contain anything sensitive, and that makes deployment a lot easier and also makes it easier for a developer to set up a new workstation, because basically they don't need to maintain their own .env file anymore like we had to in the past for our development environments. Now we can simply pull everything from 1Password if necessary. .env will still be necessary for development, and I want to make sure that is actually reflected in our .env sample file. So yeah, let's use that too. Yep, I stripped that down already. However, we need to make a few changes here. A few things are missing and a few things aren't in here. Okay, asking, did you ever get to work with VMware VROps API? No, I haven't used VMware as a virtual environment yet. I did use VMware Workstation in the past, but I've never used VMware ESX or something like that. For my own home lab, I use Proxmox on different hosts, and so I won't be able to answer any questions about VMware. Remake says, I don't know what you're doing, but it looks cool, thanks. What we're doing here is I have a Ruby on Rails web application that we've been hosting on Heroku.com for many years. Heroku makes it really, really easy to deploy a Rails application because it kind of does some kind of discovery. Hey, Vedant, I'm just explaining that. Heroku basically discovers most of the facts that it needs to know. So if you push a Git repository containing a Rails application, it recognizes that from the existence of, say, a gem file and things like that. So it basically prepares a Ruby on Rails environment already and deploys everything quite automatically. Of course, you need to make a few tweaks, but that's pretty easy. However, Heroku has fallen out of grace with me, and so I finally decided last week to deploy our Rails application to one of our own servers, and now I'm in the process of setting up Kamal to automate the whole deployment. So far, I've been successful in deploying the application, but as you can see here on the right, the application still fails booting up. That has a specific reason that I'll get to in a minute. And we've also managed to set up secrets so that deployment can work and the application already knows its database access credentials and things like that. And since I'm rejiggling what secrets get stored as Rails credentials in an encrypted file that gets deployed, and which secrets get deployed by Kamal, after Kamal pulled them from 1Password, I also need to adapt our development environment so that not only production works, which it at the moment does, but also development still works. I am aware that my development environment has still been running for a while now, so it still works, but I think if I would tear it down now and restart it, it wouldn't start again because I've changed, for example, how database access works. The way that works is it's now based completely on environment variables provided by Kamal. So if you take a look at our database.yaml, there aren't any secrets in here, but database host, username, and password get all pulled from environment variables that Kamal manages in production. But now I also need to manage them in development. Otherwise, my development environment won't start up anymore. And that, of course, would be bad as well. It doesn't help. Well, it's not sufficient that the application runs in production, which is important, but we also need to be able to do a development, don't we? I have a new coffee cup from Sig. It's ceramic inside, so it's doesn't add any taste as my previous steel cup did, and it has a nice lid that doesn't leak as my last cup did. I'm very happy, and so I've been talking for... Where's my clock? Why isn't there a clock? Oh yeah, it's there. I've been talking for half an hour now and the coffee is still pretty hot. So I'm very happy with that cup. No sponsorship by Zig, but I'm just a happy customer. Okay, says that's okay. VMware is really expensive. That's why there is not a lot of documentation or community. Only rich fintech orgs use it for the application. I would say many enterprises do as well, which is making Broadcom even richer now that they've taken control of VMware and made everything even more expensive, because a lot of big companies are dependent on their VMware environments, and moving off VMware just for cost reasons would probably definitely occur to them as a thought, but it's just not doable on such short notice. And so Broadcom is basically taking their customers, their VMware customers, hostage, and from my point of view, it borders on extortion what they're doing at the moment. I hope that Proxmox, the company behind Proxmox, the virtual environment, is going to get a lot more business from ex-VMware customers. Because Proxmox is definitely a great company and open source and all the good things. So, okay. So, as I just said, we need to make sure that these environment variables get set in development as well. And that means I should simply add them here. I think typing this might actually be easier than modifying this. So this is going to be Postgres host. Then we'll have the Postgres user, which is also the name of the variable the Postgres container image uses. Postgres password I mean, in development, we don't, of course, need any secure passwords here. And I think we'll also need the Postgres DB. Yep, Postgres DB. So I guess we'll insert that here. And we'll call it... no. Postgres DB will actually be taken care of by our database configuration here. Because database gets redefined here as dashboard_dev and dashboard_test. So that works. Remix says, love the energy. You just became my unofficial coding partner. Happy to co-work with you. Like I'm hearing you work and doing my own Zig work. Just a newbie in coding. Hey, enjoy your coding. I actually do real co-working streams from time to time where I just have music running and I do my own stuff without sharing my screen for privacy and security reasons. But we keep a task list and things like that so we can see what everyone is working on in general. And we have Pomodoro timers and breaks where we can chat in between. So if that's something that you enjoy or think you might enjoy, please follow the channel and you'll get a notification when I do my next co-working stream. Definitely happy when people drop by, even if you're lurking in the background and doing your own work, that is perfectly okay. Now, so that means we don't need Postgres DB. The Redis URL needs to be set. It's definitely not a secret either because, yeah, we're using container names here. And I think that should do it. You know what? I'm going to tear down my development setup and we're going to relaunch it. Just to see if everything still works. And the other secrets that used to be in here are actually now in the Rails credentials files in encrypted form. So yeah, that should actually work. I need to modify my own .env file. This is just a sample file that gets deployed or that gets included in the GitHub repository or GitLab repository in our case. And I need to modify my own file, which I can't share because, for example, it does contain my personal GitHub token. So give me just a minute while I adapt this. I need to copy the PostgreSQL variables. That's basically it. Okay, so this is my sample file again. And yes, I'll go down here in my terminal where I have been running my environment. Let's stop that. Just going to shut down all the local containers. Posture. And I'll also update my Docker Compose file because now we can use Postgres 17. We will not define this password since Docker Compose is going to use .env, isn't it? I think so. I just need to do something in the background, so I'll be right back. I'm back already, just to coordinate with my lovely wife who just came home. Okay, so let me see. I think we're going to adapt this to how we deploy it in Kamal as well, because we need Redis too, and for that we use Valkey. So I will use Valkey here as well. I don't think I need an additional command here either. Okay. We might have to delete the volumes because they might not be compatible anymore. But I'll give it a try. Yeah. Let's see what happens if we spin up this Postgres 14 data volume with the new Postgres 17 Docker image. I'm curious what happens. So let's do a DC up. Let's see. Redis says ready to accept. Loading RDB produced by Redis version 6, and Valkey H seems to be happy with that. Okay. And Postgres doesn't like it. Database files are incompatible with server. Data directory was initialized by Postgres version 14, which is not compatible with this version 17. Okay. So one image upgrade worked, the other didn't. Not to worry. Since it's a development environment, we can recreate everything. So let me do exactly that. What's the name of the volume? It's Postgres data. We'll nuke that. Docker volume list. Should be something with dashboard, right? Yeah, so we'll do Docker volume rm dashboard underscore API Postgres dash data. It's being used by a container. So Docker kill 22933 or Docker rm. Wait. Volume containers 22933. Volume is being used. Can I do Docker Compose rm? Postgres. That's the container removed. How about the volume? Can we do this? RM Postgres data? Nope. Volumes. That just lists them. Okay. There aren't any. Okay. Let's see if it recreates the... Well, wait. Docker volume list. Docker volume is still around. So let's try and remove that again. Dashboard underscore API. Docker volume. No such... Wait, what? Yes, there's a dash where an underscore is. Okay, this time it did remove it, so we should be able to do a DC up now. It'll recreate Postgres from scratch. And it still broke. You must specify Postgres password. Okay. I think we'll simply use .env as an env file here. Like this. That way we'll get the shared Postgres password. That does make more sense. Yep, so let's try that. Okay, Postgres initializing. Now it got its password. Ready to accept connections. That's grand. So I should be able to go into my application container and do a bin setup. So let's do a bundle X or just app, which is basically a Docker Compose exec app. And in there we'll simply run bin setup. Interesting. The app container isn't up to date. We need to rebuild that. And it's creating the databases, dashboard, dev, and test. Nice. Migrated everything. And that means I should be able to do an app bundle exec rake test suite. Run our complete test suite here. And if that works, that means the development setup has been caught up. What else do I need to do? I should make sure the README file for the project is up to date. Nice, everything works. Okay, that's brilliant. Let's see, we didn't change much. Okay, so let's catch up the README as well. which contains information for developers.
It's a Unix system. I know this.
Kugan, welcome. Thanks for the follow. So, environment variables. Application expects various settings and secrets in environment variables. See external services below for details. Not sure if we should split this up this way. We'll see. In production, environment variables get set by the hosting platform. Well, that's not the case anymore because we are our own hosting platform. So, let's see. Development reads from .env. While this file is not included in the repository for secret template, copy it, which they need to modify as necessary. Yeah, we don't have to. We shouldn't have to give an example copy command here. If I need to do that, I don't want a person to mess with my code base. Yeah, we'll have to rewrite that. Let's see. In production. And various isn't true anymore. Expects a few settings and secrets passed by environment variables. First and foremost, there's Rails master key, which contains the decryption key for the application's credentials files. This master key is stored in 1Password. In development, reads the required environment variables, reads all other required variables because stored in 1Password. Alternative to an environment variable, the key can also be stored locally in config is environment's credentials or it's config credentials. Okay, in config credentials master.key. Is that actually true? Config credentials. We'll need development and test key because those use different secrets. Then it's definitely misleading to write that under environment variables. That's definitely a topic on its own. Encryption keys for all environments are stored in one password. For local development and testing, the following files need to be populated with the respective keys. Hi Samir, how you doing? That's a config credentials development.key and testing key. And then on top of Rails of secrets stored in Rails credentials, the application expects a few more settings and secrets to be passed in via environment variables. It's not the Rails master key because that's already settled. So yeah, that's easy. Enter the command !files and press enter. !files, enter. Remake. Talk soon. Now, on top of secret sources in Rails, as Rails credentials, application expects a few more settings and secrets to be passed in via environment variables. In development, the application reads those from a .env file in the application. While this file is not included, simply copy to .env, which you then need to modify as necessary. Period. GitHub package repo. Access to our private Ruby gems requires authentications in a person. Access token. Okay. This token needs to be stored in .env as GitHub_token. That's that. Bin app bin setup should be okay. Remove that because it's all stored in Rails credentials now. Does not necessarily need to be changed. And if it does, I'll have to update the documentation anyway. Standard operating procedures deployment to staging does not apply anymore. For the time being, I don't have a staging environment at the moment. With Heroku being phased out, and I'm only in the process of setting up our own server using Kamal. Deployment to production. Yeah, and upgrading Ruby. Ruby version uses hardwired in the following files. Ruby version Docker file and GitLab CI. I think we can simplify that at the moment, because since we have .ruby version, I do remember Kamal being able to access the RBN value for that. Let me check that in the Docker file. It's not in my Docker file yet. Guess it should be, but I pulled out the default Docker file. And here they use clever trickery. However, that's a template placeholder that gets replaced by a static value. And that's actually not what I was looking for. Where else? The deploy file. Deploy YAML. Here, in this comment, we have Ruby version. And here it tries to... Kamal does actually process this as a template. So if you have RBN version set, we don't use RVM, so that's not going to be set. Or we have Ruby engine version set on Ruby engine. By default we don't, but RBN version could very well be available. Echo RBN version. I was hoping that RBN would set that automatically based on the Ruby version file. How disappointing. Okay, I guess at the moment there's no way to really simplify this. Maybe working with a .env definition of RBN version or Ruby version might work, but that's a side concern. We have much more important fish to fry here. So development does work, and the README file has been updated too, so we can actually commit this. Catch up. Dev environment. All right. Now, the reason why I have this Docker file template open is because we need to update our own Docker file. Somebody asks, your GitHub profile is with hat, yes or no? Do you mean my profile picture? Does it have a hat? No, it does not. So if you are looking for my New Vim configuration, among many others. This is how you get them. Yeah, as you can see, launching the application works, so all the basic stuff is in place. It does have access to databases and things, but it's still crashing, and that's because my development Docker file doesn't contain all the things that need to be done for a production environment. Mainly, for example, the asset pre-compilation, and that's why I think it's a good idea to adapt the Dockerfile template of the current Rails codebase to my own. So let's take a look at my Dockerfile, which is definitely much shorter than the one here on the Rails repository. This Dockerfile does a multi-phase build, which is definitely a clever thing that I'd like to adopt here as well. I wanted to do that for quite a while, so now's the time to do that. So I guess we'll start out with setting Ruby version here. What do you mean remake? I'll be streaming for still a while. No worries about that. So Ruby version, which means, well, I guess for this first deployment here, we'll actually use this Ruby version Slim. Interesting. No idea what the difference is. Should I just copy this without knowing what it does? I don't think so. We should actually research that. So Docker image Ruby Slim. Let's see, what's the difference here? Image variants. Ruby version is the de facto image, designed to be used as a throwaway container, as well as the base to build other images off of. Then there's Slim. This image does not contain the common packages contained in the default tag and only contains the minimal packages needed to run Ruby. Unless you are working in an environment where only the Ruby image will be deployed and you have space constraints, we highly recommend using the default image of this repository. So maybe this is also something that I could use as a container image in CI, where I just need to be able to run a few Ruby-based commands and will still install my own gems and stuff. On the other hand, we are not really constrained on space either. So yeah, I'll give that a try, but if something breaks, I'll replace it with the full-fat version. Maybe it's an opportunity to shed a few resources here. So let's see. As base. Now, then we set the work dir. We'll do all the application package installations. We already do that. Environment variables. And that's it already. Interesting. So all the node stuff happens down here, and there they install node separately. So up here they only do install Dockerfile base packages. No idea what that actually is. And they relink. They link libje malloc. Remake and others, if there's anything that you'd like to ask, feel free to do so. If you'd like to, if you'd like me to explain something a little bit more and deeper, then I'd be happy to do so. Will I split this in a similar way? Because just installing Node as packages did work for me so far. They just add user local node bin to the path, and they download node as a tar file. Which image are you referring to, Samir? I think I'll keep things as they are at the moment, because that's how they've been working so far. We'll skip the node installation. So all we do is we say from base as built. That's our intermediate, nope, not build essential. Intermediate build image. Let's call this base image. So here we'll then, yeah, okay, we'll install yarn here. That's fine. Maybe all the node stuff can, well, let's see. We do install yarn. We do the gem file. And since this app is our work tier already, we could actually make this a little bit shorter. Interestingly, they even copy vendor to the work directory. Fine. Then we'll okay, let's, yeah, it's, I think I'm happy with making this different blocks. So we copy gemfile log, and vendor. Somebody asks, what is the Linux distro and desktop environment you're using? I'm using Bluefin as my Linux distribution, which is based on Fedora Silverblue. And the window manager I'm using is called Neary. So we do bundle install. And after bundle install, we clean up after ourselves by rm-rf home.bundle. We've set the bundle path, so we can do... Oh, let's copy that. Makes things much easier. So bundle slash dot bundle slash, then bundle path ruby everything cache, bundle path ruby everything bundler gems, everything dot git. Interesting. If there's so much to clean up, maybe that actually was the reason why Heroku got into problems to deploy our stuff. Maybe there was just too much cruft in there. I wasn't aware that there was so much stuff that could be purged after running bundle install. Okay. Then we'll get to the node installation. So maybe my problem with Heroku deployment could have been solved with just this rm cleanup command. But I'll still continue migrating off Heroku. Now this ball has been set in motion and we'll see it through. Okay, we are copying package JSON and yarn.lock to our oh, yeah, we already do. And then we run yarn install immutable. And then we'll copy our source code. We do not depend on boot snap. We do not have any fix-ups. We do not skip the asset pipeline. So that's the step that is missing to get our application working. Secret key base dummy. Okay, so the secret key base is stored as a Rails credential, which would require Rails master key for decryption. But by setting secret key base dummy to 1, apparently we can circumvent that. Then we run Rails assets precompile. Okay. Then we can get rid of the node modules. Okay. And that's the build image. And now we say from base. Okay. I don't mind the added security. And from the intermediate build image, we then copy all our necessary stuff, but there was... Yeah. There was an autocomplete that I didn't want to happen. So we copy everything in the bundle path to our bundle path, and we copy the whole application, not Rails. This needs to be app in our case. And then there's the entry point. We expose port 3000, run Rails server. And that is it. Wow, okay. That is quite the different build here. And that also means that files that our container is going to create are going to be owned by user 1000. I'm pretty sure my own ID is 1000 as well, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, that will make things a little bit easier. For example, the since we are running Podman here, it doesn't make too much of a difference, but still. Create home Rails. Why would it create a home directory for the Rails user? Doesn't get used. Well, anyway, let's see if this actually works. We'll do a .env Kamal deploy. Now it wants the authorization with one password. One of the nice things of my Neri window manager is that it does not screen share windows that are sensitive. Okay, the Docker build did work. Let's see. It did work because it's still the old one, because I haven't committed this yet. How do we call this? Use multi-stage Docker build. Ooh, that went completely wrong. What happened? There's an arg missing. Kamal always uses the latest git commit. And so I need to commit my changes for them to actually work. Interesting. Why does that happen? Oh, okay. Is there a syntax linting? A lint violation. Huh. That is interesting. I did not pay attention to... Okay. I'll amend this to the latest commit. I can, in my own branch, I can do what I want to. Now it's pulling the slim image. And here it failed because there isn't a curl or GPG. The slim image doesn't contain that. The I see. Okay, see, and that's why we will remove this. Slim image doesn't come with these base commands like curl or gpg that I need to set up the node package repository. The Rails Docker file doesn't need that because it downloads node as a tar file. But as a veteran system administrator, I prefer installing it as a package. Doesn't make much of a difference. We are already in the build phase where we are installing gems. That's nice to see. It installs our internal gem successfully, which means the GitHub credentials did get passed in correctly. Now we've installed Node, but the asset precompile didn't work. Interesting. Okay, what happened? Asset precompile. Honeybadger doesn't have an API key, but that's not really necessary right now. The build error does not have to be reported to Honeybadger. It says can't connect, connecting to Redis on localhost. Oh, interesting. For the asset precompilation, it spins up Rails. And Rails needs database and Redis access. Huh. Is that so? How's the build supposed to work then? It didn't complain about the database, so it must be the way how I'm integrating Redis here. We'll probably need some kind of a conditional that if we are spinning Rails up to only precompile assets, that we won't need any databases. I haven't seen that yet, but that's because, well, why is that? We didn't have Redis in CI either. Say production deploy. It did these things, I think, in the deploy phase here. We had Redis and Postgres running as services, even for deployment. So I never noticed that it actually needed these services for deployment. I thought I'd only need them for the test suite. This is amazing. Okay. That's something I need to research. Rails asset pre-compile Redis. Sidekick tries to connect to Redis during assets pre-compilation. Yeah, that's something similar. I'm not using Sidekick, but... okay, that is, of course, something that interesting. If assets pre-compile is true. Do not connect to Redis at exit if not needed. Okay, that's definitely a Sidekick thing, but I think I'll need this unless asset precompile equals true. Rollout. Config initializers rollout. I think... for asset precompilation, we probably don't need any of this. But let's try and find out Rails rollout asset precompile. Pixel Buttercup, hello! So far, so good. We're making progress with our Rails application. In the process of making it Kamal deployment ready, we are also fixing a few hidden bugs. Feels weird to build a guard clause like something like this. To completely skip this initializer if we are doing asset precompilation. Pixelbutterweb says that happens all the time. The other day I fixed a bug that has been in the app I work on for 5 years. No one realized until now. Working from Barcelona. That's nice. I can't imagine. It's definitely warmer than here in Ireland. We only have... what does my clock say? 17 degrees. But I'm not sure if I wanted to have... temperatures as they are in Catalonia at the moment. What's the temperature at your place? $27. Yeah. That's already at the limit where I can really get to sleep. There is a slight chance that I'll be moving to Spain eventually. And I think I'll definitely make sure that I'll have air conditioning in the house. I'd like to do a little bit more research. Rails rollout gem assets precompile Redis. Why? I mean, that I like Spain is definitely one of the main criteria. Yeah. It's simply because it's at the top of the list of countries I can imagine myself living in. Right after Ireland. And I'm definitely going to stay in Ireland as long as possible. It's just with the current housing situation, there might come the day when I have to leave, or when my family and I have to leave Ireland, simply because we can't get a house anymore. And then Spain is pretty much the plan B, I think. Let's see, following instructions, production assets precompile, isn't set when I'm doing the production mode precompile. Get an URI error, yeah. In application, I set the following to prevent initialization prior to Redis starting up. Config assets initialize on precompile false. Okay, yeah, that's completely outdated. 2013. Same, Pixel Buttercup, same. I do enjoy it, but yeah, things being as they are, you need a plan B. Let's say there's no answer. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Pixel Buttercup. That's a huge nuisance, getting a credit card stolen. No worries about the ad. I didn't even realize that there was one. Oh yes, there was a chat message about it. Yeah, what I said was, as you do, I enjoy living in Ireland and living near Dublin. But as with the housing situation being as it is, you basically need a plan B. And I mean, I don't have a well thought out plan B yet. It's not that I'm doing emergency scenarios in my head all the time. But yeah, we'll definitely look towards Spain if necessary. This Mastodon error might be a little bit more recent issue. Let's see how they dealt with that. Should not require Redis at all. New initializer that tries to access the Rails cache, which is Redis backed. But sadly, the assets precompile task boots the full app environment, running all the initializers. Yep, that makes that is what I'm seeing myself. Is there a way to skip the initializers? And they included a fix. Let's take a look at the fix. Maybe they did exactly the same. Files changed 1. Posture check. Thank you, Pixel Buttercup. And hydrate. This will actually, I think, empty my coffee cup. My pretty new coffee cup, which is working great. And not spilling any coffee on me like my previous cup did. Really happy with it. With the new cup, I actually feel like I should make much more coffee. This cup might get me addicted to coffee. Let me just take care of the redemptions here. Bada bing, bada boom. By the way, people, if you are interested in Linux system administration, I'm running a free course here on my streaming channels every Thursday. You can simply drop by and take part. We've started last week with a few historical things around Linux, and this week we are going to cover a few basic shell features and Vim. So if that's something you're interested in, use the command !Linux course. Simply enter that in chat. Linux course, one word with an exclamation mark in front. And the URL will tell you all the details. I would be happy if you joined us on Thursday for basic Linux system administration. Okay, so they do simply rescue not just an active record adapter error, but any exception. That is a little bit too general for my taste. Rescuing all? Exceptions? How is this supposed to work? Application config to prepare. That's in the settings digests initializer. We could try and not 100% sure how to deal with this yet. We could try and rescue the rollout initialization. Let's see if the folks over at Discourse were able to fix this. I think we should be more precise and say docker build Rails asset precompile Redis. Interesting. Wait, isn't there the search result showed an answer? It's missing here. How weird. Because here it says if that step needs to contact Redis, it can't run in the Docker file anyways. You have to move that setup to an entry point script. That is definitely a possibility. We could do that. We already have an entry point script that does the database migrations. Could it be that easy? It could. But then we can't get rid of the node modules. I wanted to get rid of rollout anyway and replace it with Flipper, because rollout is a feature flag gem that allows me to define feature flags. And it's the only feature that at the moment depends on Redis. And if I was able to replace that with Flipper, which has support for Postgres storage, then it would work much better. However, Asset Precompile is still going to spin up the Rails application, including the database. I'm confused. How is it at all possible? To run assets precompile in a Docker file? Does it work without a database? And is it just Redis here that breaks things? I'm confused. Let's see. They simply run Rails assets precompile here. And there's no database running. No Redis either. I think... Let me see what happens here in detail. We run assets precompile. Honey Badger throws an error, but that's just a secondary error, I think, because it tries to notify the actual failure, and that's the cannot connect error here. Where it tries to access Redis on localhost where it doesn't exist. Yeah, it's just rollout. Maybe not initializing rollout. Will actually work. How do other people do this? this is how you learn, people. You get yourself into a situation where you simply want to do something like simply deploy Rails with Kamal, and then you realize that there are a lot of hidden details. But I do appreciate the opportunity to learn about all these internals, how, for example, Rails initialization and asset precompilation are intertwined. In this Docker file, they do not do any asset precompilation. Apparently, no. They do absolutely no asset precompilation, right? Nope, there is no precompile at all. Well, that doesn't help. In production, neither container will actively run. Let's see. Instead, everything will get bundled and minified during a Rails assets precompile. We can handle this use case pretty easily with the run script pattern. The run script pattern to configure the watchers depending on package JSON. Yeah, okay, fine. But how about only Rails assets precompile in non-development environments? Precompiling your assets can slow you down in development. Fortunately, a single if condition can control when they get compiled, such as if Rails env doesn't equal development, then secret key base, dummy. That's why they introduced this dummy variable, apparently. And that's in a script. Which script is that, though? Oh, it's a run. It's a run command in the Docker file. Okay. Since you would rarely build your image with Rails env test, this condition will ensure your assets get built in production, staging, or whatever environments you have. Somebody dummy a secret key because precompiling will invoke parts of Rails that need defined. Yeah, okay. And that's where the secret key based dummy comes in. Yeah, all right. Entry point script. Let's see, if I replace Docker build, let's say Rails, let's see. By default, Sidekick tries to connect, but your Sidekick is in a different container than Redis. Okay, that's not actually related. Let's take a look at this again. They actually have a guard clause here where they simply do not set up okay. Wait, we have this Redis initializer. And that's where it actually fails. First of all, we should probably update this and break this down a little. And this, of course, will return nil in build. And therefore, rollout new with nil will fail. Where's the GitHub issues for rollout? No results. Ah. This is annoying. If we bail out early here, we won't have any feature class, we won't have the feature constant. So this won't be able to be called. There's no Redis during container build phase. Let's give this a try. I have no idea if this works. It's an interesting experiment. Cure or fix. Allow init for assets recompile. I love the integration of Kamal and 1Password. Being able to safely store secrets and access them during deployment is absolutely great. So it still failed with connection refused. In rollout 25, so the environment variable doesn't get set. Rails assets precompile. Huh? Should have shortcut this. Oh, they built that themselves. I thought it would be built into Rails. But that's how they solved it. Okay. Really? I guess as a workaround, that doesn't feel quite right for me. Rails assets compile. Hey, compile equals true. Secret key based dummy. We could also simply refer to secret key based dummy if that's the indication. Rails secret key base dummy. Let's see. Secret key base generating random and storing it can also be triggered by. Okay. This is useful when precompiling assets for production as part of a build step that otherwise does not need access to the production secrets. Yep. Will we simply use secret key based dummy as an indication that we are doing an assets precompile? Let's get started. Stored in as local secret or text. Okay. I think I like the more explicit way we are doing it here. So let's add that to the previous commit, and then we'll do a Kamal deploy again. Now the guard clause should kick in. Yep, here we go. And it worked. Okay. Now we're cleaning up node modules. Nice. Took 4 seconds to get rid of all that cruft. Interesting. So that's something we can clean up once we got rid of rollout. Let me go back to this Docker file. There's something that I found, I just noticed and find odd. Wait. Base packages. Here we start base as build. From base as build. So here we start the build image. Thanks, Rebecca. We do the node stuff and bundle stuff. Oh, no, I made a mistake. Yeah, then we... I didn't see the intermediate step here, I think. Here we copy... Ah, yeah. I didn't see that we switched images here. That's the last build step. And then we go into stage 2 where we copy all that stuff. I was thinking, wait, we are still in build here and are removing node modules, so the whole development stuff is around. But then we copy things, but that's a different stage. Okay. And we did deploy successfully. And the application works. We can't sign in because the database is completely empty, but it works. With CSS and everything. This is my first Rails container that I'm running myself. Nice. I did learn a lot, and I guess I'll keep learning doing these things. But now I have a Docker file that I can reuse, if I don't just use the Docker file that's coming with new Rails applications anyway. I have a better understanding of Docker build stages. I learned how to manage secrets using Kamal and 1Password. This is all pretty nifty. My main problem that's still ahead of myself is to redo my Git commit history here that got me to this point, because there are a lot of work in progress commits here and stuff. And to structure that into actual commits that make sense in the context of a merge request, this is going to be an interesting challenge. But I think that's something that I need to do outside of this stream, because I feel that my brain is pretty much fried at this point. We've been going on for quite a while. Okay, but we are up and running. So the next major challenge I'll have is importing our live data from the existing application, where we do actually have customer data in there, to export that and import it into my own Postgres database that Kamal is now running for me. And that is definitely something that I'll probably do outside of the stream as well, because of handling of credentials and things like that. That's rather sensitive, so I think I'll do that on my own. Okay. We can close this tab. Well, nope. We'll keep the SQL dump page open, because that's definitely something I'll need. Interesting, we still have the old fav icon here. Didn't we replace that? Failed to replace that. That's something we need to fix. Because, yeah, we'll need that as a fav icon and not the old one. We rebranded our whole brand design last year. And apparently overlooked the fav icon of our dashboard. Okay. Interesting. Okay, I'll push this to preserve it. Must be the first time I pushed this, because I did quite a lot of amending commits. So the fact that I didn't need to use a force push here tells me that I actually did not push any changes so far to our remote repository, which is a bit risky, to be honest. I could have lost all that stuff with a disk crash or something. Commit often, push often. That's what I usually do, but apparently I did not do that yet. Okay, since I'm out of coffee and since I'm at a nice point where things actually are working with Kamal deployment, and I just need to re-import the database to get this running and then do the same again during a maintenance window where we actually shut off the original application at Heroku and dump all the data, import it into our own application, and then get the new application running under the old domain. That's something that I'll need to do at the right time, mainly at a time where only a few or ideally none of our customers are active on the application. I think this is a good point to wrap things up. So let me again point out that on Thursday, I might do a live coding stream tomorrow, so make sure to follow the stream or subscribe on YouTube to get notified. On Thursday, we are going to do the second round of basic Linux system administration, my live-streamed Linux administration course. If you are interested in taking part in that course, it's free. You simply pop by and join one of my live streaming channels. Please sign up and you can get the URL using the command !Linux course in chat. Simply enter !Linux course all in one word, enter, and it'll get you the URL where you can sign up for my free Linux system administration course. If you are into DevOps, if you want to get into DevOps, if you are a junior developer who would like to deepen your understanding of Linux and the whole system, then this course could be very well for you. And !Linux course gets you all the information. Other than that, yeah, no other announcements. So thanks for watching. Thanks for chatting, everyone. It's been fun. I'm happy about the progress that I've made, and I'm happy to see that Kamal is actually very useful for me to run my Rails application on my own infrastructure. And yeah, I hope to see you soon. Either in tomorrow's live coding stream or on Thursday's Linux course. Let's give you the URL one more time. Linux course. So that's mspc.sh/free-linux-course. And I'll post it over on YouTube as well. Linux course. Remix as well, I will do come for every stream. That's amazing. Yeah, so until next time, thanks everyone. Take care.